Chapter 4. My Night in Hawaii with Babaji. June 7, 2020. He came out of nowhere from behind and smacked my ass so hard I yelled. And then he grabbed me by the neck and said, "What you gonna do, pussy? You want somebody to choose you, huh? That's what you want. Come here." He grabbed me by my neck, took me in the back room and shut the door. He scared the shit out of me. He put me to sit on the dresser and he sat on the lower level of the bunk bed in the room across from me and he said, "I want to play you something." He played Erykah Badu, Orange Moon. He told me to listen to these words carefully. Every sentence he paused and asked if I knew the meaning. He told me the song is about a woman becoming brighter from her man and how I needed to feel him and get filled with him in order to become one. He told me that I was truly his wife. I asked him what would be his dream come true right now. He said, "You and Nana as my wives getting along and to be able to have sex with Malia and I at any time I want because I don't want them with no other man." I told him, okay, that sounds fair and that she, Nana, will be coming back very soon. I could still feel her. And finally he told me, okay, if you say so. I said, watch and see. He kissed me and told me that he wanted me so bad. He asked me if I wanted to go for a walk with him outside. I said, sure. We heard so many wild noises outside as the window was open. He said it may be too dark though. I said, okay. He came back to kissing me and feeling all over my body. He turned around and started biting my back and smacking my ass really hard the way I love it. And I kept yelling, so he put his hand over my mouth, but I couldn't help myself. I was very loud sexually. He kept smacking my ass and wrapped his hand around my neck. This time I knew the only danger was this man making me crazy over him. He pressed his penis up against my vagina from the back, acting like he was penetrating me. We both were still fully clothed. He kept asking me if I felt him. I said yes. He was grabbing my face and kissing me from the back. He was a master at this. He turned me face forward to him, had my legs in the air, and he was going to work, still all clothes on. He asked me, "Do you want me?" I said yes, but I'm not ready. He told me to look at him and asked me again while he was dry humping me over my clothes. I couldn't even answer this time because he was holding my neck, choking me. I couldn't stop moaning and telling him I loved him. He told me to show him. He kept telling me he loved me. I had on a one-piece jumpsuit. He started to bring it down and he turned me around again, biting my back and smacking my ass intensely. I was jerking the entire dresser. Everyone in the whole house could hear. I told him I was embarrassed. He told me to let them hear, let them know I'm your man. Out of nowhere, True comes in the room to get something, so we completely paused with a blank face like, huh? But then I used it as an excuse and said, babe, they need to sleep in the room. It's almost 3 a.m. He said he didn't care, that this was our moment. Let's enjoy it. I was so ready to give in. It wasn't exactly my vision of us in the beach making love, but I figured I would get to embody his spirit. I could really gain the knowledge. He told me he was going to put a baby in me, that I was going to have his child. At this point, I completely stopped resisting. But as he began to pull my jumper past my butt, he was like, "What's this?" I'm looking back like, what? My tattoo? He's like, no. Are you wearing panties? We don't wear panties. You need to let the pussy breathe, baby. Unless it's your period, I don't want to see panties on you. That's an order. It's crazy, but that literally shocked me back into my body. And I told him to stop. Let's wait. He then flipped out on me. He started yelling, "You know who I am. You don't tell me no. You do what I say. You don't resist me. Give it to me now." And turned me over. But I kept a hold on my panties with the jumper on my waist level. He kept pulling my hands, telling me to let go and grab my neck again, but in a good way. I was really tempted, but my heart kept saying, no, don't do it. So then I said, not yet, Baba, please, not yet. I'm not ready. Let's wait for Nana and we can be open about everything. Oh boy, I hit a nerve because he went the fuck off. You worried about Nana and I'm right here in front of you? I'm your man and you telling me no? He started pumping his chest at me. He took off his shirt and got all in my face and said, "You know who I am, huh? Do you know? You think you can tell me no? If you don't let me have it right now, we are done. I'm done with you." I put my face down and shook my head no, and he walked out the room talking to himself. I don't believe this nigga. She don't know who I am. I gathered myself together and pulled up my overalls and managed to get one arm in a sleeve before he came back silently and scared me. He grabbed me and pinned me against the dresser and told me to feel him and put my hands on his penis. He said, "You don't want me, huh? You've been waiting for this. It's all here for you. It's yours, and you don't want me?" I was so speechless. I'd never felt anything so big in my life. I couldn't get the whole head wrapped around his girth. I whispered, "This is going to ruin me. You're trying to fuck up my life. This is what's wrong with all these women now." We both busted out laughing. I told him his penis was the devil, to move it away from me. He came back on strong and told me to take it, that all of it was for me. Then I smelled chocolate on him, and he had a ginger beer on the dresser that I didn't even realize before. So I took a sip and asked him why he didn't bring me a cookie. We laughed. He sat on the bed and said, "Man, I really like you. I love you for real. I love that you're not scared of me. I can talk to you." He came over to the counter and kissed me all over my face and neck. He finally started caressing my breasts and gripping them. He sucked my left nipple hard as if he knew exactly what I liked. I sucked his nipples back, and he told me to grab his neck too. So we were kissing and grabbing and sucking, and I was soaked at this point. He told me he had to have me, and I said, "We will soon. Our time is coming, and that I want us to be on the beach together." So he said, "Okay. Tomorrow we are going to the beach. Hopefully if we can get out with this quarantine." Little did we know, there would be no beach for us. I felt sad and relieved at the same time because I really wanted him, but my intuition is very strong. But the part that made me sad was he went back into the room with Malia and Aya, even though we had just spent hours literally, passionately attacking each other. I thought if we did actually have sex, would he still have gone back in the other room? I started to overthink too much because I felt so vulnerable at that moment. Like, what just happened? Did I just mess up, or did I trust my gut? He overpowered me so much, I just couldn't gather my thoughts. His smell was all over me, which I was in love with. So I just laid down on the bottom bunk bed where he sat, and I ended up falling asleep because it was 4 a.m. anyway, and the guys were sound asleep where they were, so I just followed along. I didn't want to wake the women either, even though Star passed by at least 5 times when Baba G was smacking my ass and had me hemmed up. I kept being nervous about everyone hearing us. Every time I looked at the crack in the door, there she was, so damn nosy. So I just shut the door gently and went to sleep. Oh, what a night to remember. The next morning, Baba G was up super early and decided that he was going to address the people of Hawaii. He said he would let them know that he was on their land and that we come in peace. World News and the trolls had already sent Hawaiians awful messages about us, saying that we were a sex cult and that Baba G was a pedophile. I never believed that about him, and I know it to be a lie. He addressed his son touching his penis as a father being natural around his kid with masculinity. It was all in innocence. Even when you watch the video, you can see how his adversaries tried to demonize him. But anyone with eyes could see that there were specific groups of people literally assassinating his character, attempting to defame him. He got on live with an aggressive energy, reminding the Hawaiians that we are all black people, including them, and that we came in peace. He talked about his daughter and protecting his family at all costs, and that he only wanted to create a better life for the tribe and live in tune with nature. He kind of went left when he spoke about being a nigga, and that he was getting away from the States because of all the violence and offenses the black man had been enduring in Babylon. There were a lot of comments that Hawaii does not want him, and that we should go back to where we came from. He got really upset and how Hawaiians were not giving us a fair chance before judging us. He opened the line for all Hawaiians to call in and ask any questions and address any concerns they had. He got tons of calls, and the Hawaiians asked about the pedophilia, about why it was called a sex cult, to how many wives did he have. I remember him responding to the last question saying that sometimes he has 7 wives, 2 or 1 wife, and that all depended on what the universe allowed to happen, because Allah is what allows everything to happen. I was in front of him and away from the camera, but lip synced to him that it's none of their business what he does with his women, and he repeated it on live. He always listened to me. We were deeply connected. There was not one moment that I wasn't by his side if he was live or expressing himself. I was always excited to hear every word that he uttered. His words always spoke to my soul deeply when he professed and defended the knowledge. He went on to express that when a man enters someone else's territory, it's only natural to show respect to the people of that land and honor them. with acknowledgement. He spoke about men being protectors and that it was so important for a man to stand for his family at all costs, and that carbonation are a people of nature who come to live in tune with Mother Nature, and he would love the blessing of the spirit of Hawaii. The people called in for hours. Finally, Solar Noon was ready for everyone to eat, and he got off the live. That day they made Alfredo shrimp, linguine pasta for Babaji, which included Malia and Aya, and the rest of us had lentils and rice, which was always good, especially if FERERE was cooking. She had the best hand in the kitchen, always seasoned on point. A few hours later, Babaji went live again to allow the Hawaiian people more questions, but this time it was strange. They were specifically asking about why he touched the turtles and that he actually broke quarantine, and the officials don't play in Hawaii and will be looking for him. He told us all to stay calm but to prepare for anything. We carried on about the day. I never heard mention about going to the beach, and so it was a chill day. I dressed in my orange wrap that morning, with the elephants wanting to feel supported by elephant energy, but I had no idea I would actually be on camera. Babaji got on live again, and a lot of people started to ask him for a real nigga moment. A real nigga moment with me. Since that was the first time the day before that he revealed on camera that I had joined carbonation. He told the people they had to put hearts and flowers in his face, and then he would see. The audience got aggressive and really wanted to know the status. They remembered from me on previous lives with Babaji debating, singing, dancing, and being a woman. He openly admitted he loved and that I left him hanging when he asked if I was his wife. Then all of a sudden I'm here, in Hawaii with him. He asked me to join the live and began asking me very intimate questions. First about my childhood, how I was raised, told him about my mom's battle with drugs and how she was brutally killed in Haiti. He gave his condolences very sincerely, which really put me at ease. I used to be embarrassed about my mom's brave battle with drugs, but I appreciated that she taught me to say no to drugs literally, no matter what. I told him about having an adopted family, being raised a Jehovah's Witness, and being a virgin until 21, having a 33-year young boyfriend at the time who I had an abortion for at 23. A lot of the audience called me a murderer and that I was evil because the baby was 13 weeks old. He asked me if I regretted it, and I said if I could do it over, I wouldn't have had the abortion. He defended me and told the live they couldn't judge. For something that happened almost 20 years ago, and that I learned a powerful lesson which led me deeper into my spiritual journey out of fear of being punished for having an abortion. Side note, I recently did some research and found out I was actually 5 weeks pregnant when I had the termination. Not sure if I was subconsciously thinking of Zoka being 14 weeks pregnant, wanting an abortion, but that was incorrect. Babaji asked me how many men I've been with. I told him the truth of 6 men, and I was shocked he thought it wasn't a bad number considering my age. He asked if I ever did drugs. I told him I tried weed but never liked it, but that I did smoke cigarettes in the past, which he exposed in a previous live in a real nigga moment before I got to carbonation. He asked me how I felt about people saying that I won't last in carbonation over a month because I was too strong and mature and wouldn't tolerate standing in a corner. Laugh out loud. A lot of the people said he should make me chiefess and I would help the younger women to be adults. Then there were some who said they didn't trust me and that I was fake. Some people kept saying that he was only using me for my money and that I was the money bag for him. At the time it was water under the bridge. But looking back to date, as some of the women wrote in the comments that I'd be in for a rude awakening because I put him on such a high pedestal. By the midlife, I was in tears expressing how important Babaji was to me and that I was willing to sacrifice it all for the purpose of growth and the mission. Many of the commenters kept asking if I had sex with Babaji, which we never answered, but they kept saying I probably had herpes since most of carbonation had it. That definitely made me nervous and also relieved that him and I hadn't had sex yet. But I brushed it off and he kept asking me questions like how do I feel about polygamy, and I finally said I was open, heart and mind. He smiled at me behind the camera because he knew how I felt about it personally from the other night, that Nana is the only other woman I would be a sister wife to. He asked me about my traveling and experience in Africa, and he asked about my music I had created and what made me come to carbonation after being so worldly and seeking knowledge. I told him his knowledge literally blew my mind, and he told me that I pledged allegiance to my heart creation was really to pledge allegiance to Babaji. I laughed it off, but I knew I would never say that. He asked me to sing a song for the people, and I sang Dream Awake, an original from my SYBIL music artist name, and the entire family sang the chorus along with me. It was only an hour of talking, but it was probably one of the most life-changing moments I ever experienced, because before that, no one knew any of what I told him. I felt so naked and vulnerable, partially also embarrassed. When the live was over, my sisters came and hugged me, and Nateri was in tears and literally bowed to me and told me I inspired her, and Star told me I was speaking to her soul. The men applauded me when I walked in the house as they were watching along in the living room. I forgot to mention the men and women always stayed separated in all the houses. From then, we ate solar noon, and I felt very liberated and open-hearted. Baba G invited me to eat with him, and we had an amazing spread of black-eyed peas and assortment of sauces with ginger beer to drink. This was the first time I partook of a meal with him. I felt really welcome, and Zoka actually said to me after the live, "Welcome home." During lunch with Baba G, including Malia and Aya, I asked them about anal sex at lunch and how they adjusted. Malia loved it and said with Baba G, it's not painful. Even though he's huge, once you submit to him, it's all mental and you can just relax into it. Aya said she liked it and that it wasn't painful at all. We stayed outside eating, and Baba G went in the room, connected to the porch area, so although he was inside, he could hear us. He came and brought us a bottle of wine, and we drank and laughed. I played the life game with them, and then Nateri came out to ground, and Baba G had her join us. It was a day of bliss. I couldn't have asked for a more perfect day. Baba G came over and told me that I had the it factor, and that all the numbers went up for me, and that he wanted me to go live regularly, and that he was very proud of me. He then went on to say, yo, when you told that lady she deals with regular dudes and that's why she can't understand polygamy because she never met a Baba G who was God, that literally shut the room down. He said I killed it and that the people loved me. He also said I was shaky in the beginning of the song, but that once I got comfortable, I flowed beautifully, and that the song choice was perfect to sing, Dream Awake. It touched my soul when he said the name of my song.
Chapter 5. My first time in prison. Holding cell 6/11/20. Later on that night, a new family had arrived. Amia and her mom Rose and 2 brothers. No one got to meet them because they came in late while we were all in our rooms, so we met them in the morning. Nateri was called to meet with Babaji early to give her unemployment money that had come in. That's how it usually went. Anyone who got government assistance or food stamps had to give the money and card to the finance team, which was Musa and True, and would be sent to the carbonation pot cash app, Professor Musa. Then Babaji announced that some of the group would go to the other Airbnb that morning because he wanted us to split up. So Zoka, Syrian, Mente, Pais, Kite, Caliber, and Fuji went to the second location. The new family came to our door pretty early and introduced themselves. The boy was very uncomfortable. He kept yelling and making odd noises and hitting baby Jaomi, so the vibes were strange. The room kind of cleared out, and Niza was the only one who stayed in bed. She was having manic depression and hadn't eaten or spoken as soon as we got to Hawaii. She was completely mute. After the 3rd day, we told Babaji she hadn't eaten, and she said it was because she was ugly with short hair and overweight, and we told her how beautiful she was. She remained the same for the entire time in the Hawaii Airbnb. After the meeting, Babaji had went on a live again to allow the Hawaiians to ask any questions and to keep the peace. But one caller called in saying he heard the women were forced to have sex, so he had Malia, myself, Eferu get on camera so we could speak for ourselves on the spot. We told them that we were free, grown-ass women who only slept with who we want and no one could control who we slept with, although in my heart I knew that was a bold lie. It felt right to defend the family because they were trying to make it seem like there was some sort of rape or force, which I never witnessed, so I couldn't co-sign that energy at all. If anything, every single woman in Carbonation wanted to fuck Babaji, married, single, pregnant, and in between, even the men for that matter. So really, there was no forcing anything. The truth is, Babaji told everyone who to be with and who not to be with, and he got to pick and choose who he would sleep with at any given moment. He is the only man in the house who could decide randomly that he wanted to sleep with anyone new who came into the family or in order for them to embody the knowledge. In fact, a new member named Anoki Elowa had come into the group while Niza and I were on the road trip. Apparently, she only lasted 1 day. Efru told me she did not want to have sex with Babaji, so she had to go, and she claimed she would make her own journey to Hawaii without carbonation. For instance, I'm not sure if Malia knew what Babaji and I were doing in the other room that night, but she was not in the position to question him. No one is. Even when he came to pick me up in Georgia, he said he had never done this before and that he could feel Malia was jealous, but that still never stopped him from doing what he wanted. Everyone adjusted accordingly. However, in the lieu of the tone of the live, we had to protect Babaji at all costs. I wasn't going to let him go out like that. I was still very protective of my Messiah. Then the calls became really aggressive. Some of the Hawaiians were calling in and calling him a nigger and threatening him to say meet him to fight him man to man and get off the island because carbonation wasn't welcome there. Then he had two really strange men that all of us in the background kept saying were agents who made him confirm on live that he was at the beach and he touched the turtles. And that's when he got off live and pulled up a meeting, told everyone to pack up and be prepared to go to jail. He spoke for hours that his message will not be vindicated until he died. He said his message would reach the millions once he transitioned from this life. He said he wasn't afraid of death and that he would die leaving a legacy for his daughter. And then he told us that Nana was on her way back. We all applauded and knew he was so happy. He told Loyal to get him some wine. It had been 2 p.m. or so. He drank and talked for hours about how much he loves his daughter. He spoke about his life coming to an end, transitioning, and how we had to all be willing to die for this mission. He asked us all if we were willing to die for the mission. We all said yes, and he told us we were bullshitting and that we would all fold under pressure. He said none of us were ready for what was to come because this was the beginning of the test we would endure and that everyone should prepare for jail. Around 6 p.m., he sat at the kitchen chair across from me. I told him I was so happy Nana was coming home, and he smiled. He said, "But when I die, my message will be heard." I told him to please stop talking that way. He said it was true. Look at Pac and Biggie and Marley. He said that's the price. I consistently fell deeply in love with his wisdom and understanding of life. I could feel every word. His knowledge in the Black community is unmatched. He is the first to bring the 5 sciences and Gaga explained together and simplify the meanings. I never once questioned the knowledge. It's what truly drew me in. Even with all the previous live sex on Instagram, and speaking of creating an OnlyFans page exploiting my sisters, I've always felt he did that just because he was hurting about not having Nana. I cursed him out so bad about doing the live sex before I got to carbonation. He told me sex was natural and that being a divine woman allows a woman to be sexual. But I knew Nana would have never allowed that type of behavior. So I was so thankful she was coming back so things could be in order again. But the drama seemed to never stop. Even though we got the good news about Nana, we were all in fear about being arrested. Babaji told us that all the people who were at the beach video live would be arrested. He told everyone to make sure they hide their phones. He said I wouldn't go to jail, so he designated me to keep everyone's phones. He gave me all of the team's phone numbers, and he gave me all the people to call to get bail money from. He also told me I was in charge of Nana and baby Ellie coming, and that I had to guard them with my life, and I swore to him that I would. He gave Nana's flight info, and I was going to pick her up at the airport. That day, we all ate solar noon around 6 p.m., but Babaji said he had no appetite and just kept drinking wine. About 8 p.m., Babaji got the dreaded call from Pice that everyone was being detained at the second location except for him and Kite because they weren't in the video. I got on the phone and pretended to be Pice's attorney, Pice had me on the speaker, and I told the officers that they had no right to arrest anyone and that Pice should take all the badge numbers and names of every police officer because they were discriminating against them. The police explained that Pice and Kite had to move to a hotel because the Airbnbs were not legal during quarantine unless it was a long term, which we fit the description because we rented the Airbnb for over 30 days. But they said Pice and Kite had to leave. I told them they had no money and could not be left homeless. So the cops offered to put them in a hotel and we refused. The cops stayed for hours questioning Pice and Kite. Pregnant Zoka, Syrian, Mente, Fuji, and Caliber were all put in handcuffs for breaking quarantine, which they reviewed from the video. After a few hours of remaining on the phone with Pice, they then arrested him and Kite for being at a different address location than what they wrote for the entry form in the airport. We all put the addresses we were given by the team's captain. So they did nothing wrong because none of us knew which house we were going to when we first arrived. Only that Babaji wanted 2 locations to separate the group. Babaji was relieved that he was not in the house with Pice and Kite, but he also knew they would soon discover the second address from the same forms. Pice and Kite were detained, and Babaji told us to prepare because we were all next. I still didn't think I would be detained because I thought the address I was given to write was correct. We all went to sleep super late, like midnight, and usually we were in bed by Musa time, which was 8:30, 9 p.m. max. The next morning, Babaji went live and didn't say anything about the first group being detained. He went on speaking on his innocence and said we came in peace and wanted to cause no harm or danger to anyone. That morning, everyone's bags were packed. I still didn't realize the magnitude of what was happening. I took a long shower that morning and got dressed up. Not until after a few hours of Babaji on live, he said they're coming to arrest him. As soon as he was on live, the entire SWAT team showed up and barricaded the premises. About 10 trucks and huge men in uniform and Uzis lined up and got on the megaphone and said for every person to come out of the house with their hands up. Babaji told the officers they were all on live and said he needed to put on decent clothing and shoes and that he would come right out. He came over to me and gave me the phone and told me to keep everything on live. He walked out and the police handcuffed him at the front gate of the house. All the soldiers went in after him one by one. Then Malia and Aya also went out. Neytiri and Sheba also went out with Jaomi in her hand. Me and Niza were the last 2 in the house. I hid all the phones in the couches like Babaji told me to, so the police didn't have evidence. I still never came out of the house. The police were still on the megaphone saying for everyone to come out. Next thing you know, the police were surrounding the entire house and checked the tents in the backyard and came in through the open garage into the house. They said, "Everyone, hands up and out the house." I told them they did not have a warrant and couldn't come into the house. They came into the kitchen and looked around, then in the bedrooms. I was still standing at the garage door. I told them I needed to get my bags and grab my purse, sprayed my fragrance on and told myself, if I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna smell like a god. Don't ask. I came out and walked over to the cops and they said, "Oh, your voice sounds very familiar." And then we all laughed. I said, "They're like my little brothers. Don't you have family? What wouldn't you do?" Officer Rio smiled and said, "Come on, SYBIL," which shocked me that they knew my name. They cuffed me and put me in the back seat. Then Eferu was the last person to be arrested. They let Sheba stay even though she was also in the video because she was with Jaomi, and they also let Rose stay with her kids. As we drove in the regular white pickup truck, I had no fear. The police were very kind and gentle. I told them we just came to live in nature and that the spirit of the island will prove our innocence. I told them that for spiritual reasons, We had to go to the water and greet nature. They told me they understood and that this has never happened before in Hawaii. They said that they have never seen a group of Black people come to Hawaii like this before, and that what people were saying about us was very disturbing. I asked him, "Do you feel we are dangerous people?" They said, "Not at all," but this was the orders they were given. They said they didn't know what would happen to us, but that it should be over soon because they had real predators kidnapping women in Hawaii, and we were not real criminals at all. We got to the detention center, they took our mugshots, then we all walked over to the cell. I told them I wanted to make my phone call. They said okay, they would allow it once they finished the paperwork. As we approached the cell, we heard, "Yerp!" really loud. First face I saw was Babaji. He said, "Oh shit, they got you, Earth?" And I shrugged. He told me to relax. We were in the cell next to him. Me, Aya, Malia, Eferu, Natiri, and Niza. In his cell, he had True, Sounds, Caliber, Musa, and Solar. He asked us through the cell if we were okay. We all said yes. Everyone was really cool and calm. We sat quiet most of the time. They bought us salad and beans for dinner because we didn't want meat. Babaji called me and said, "Earth, did you tell Sheba to pick up Nana at the airport?" And I confirmed. "Rose will pick her up, and I gave Sheba your phone, so when Nana calls, everyone knows what's going on." I asked the officer if I could please have a phone call. When I went back to the room, their phones could not dial long distance. So I asked if I could please use my cell phone. They got it for me in my purse, and I immediately video called Sheba. I asked if she was okay. She said yes, and I told her Babaji gave orders to make sure Nana and baby Ellie Princess is picked up at 7. She confirmed yes, that she would go with Rose to pick them up, and food was ready and they were set. I told her I was thankful and I loved myself when we hung up, and I gave my cell phone back. I got back to the cell and told Babaji that Nana would be picked up and everything was good. He put his hand through the cell and we wrapped our fingers together and sealed it. 1 minute later, one of the officers came over and on his shirt he had a yin-yang symbol, and I called to Babaji and had him look at his shirt. Told him that was confirmation that Nana was good. He was ecstatic, and then I sat at the end of the seat and reached for his hand. We did the same sealed, intertwined, high five hand. I loved doing that with him. Somehow it made me feel safe. Then they all bought us plastic beds. We laid them out on the floor, lined them up next to each other, and then we all just laid down. Then I told Babaji to ask for his call because Nana should be there by then. The officer was really nice. He bought Babaji my phone, and then he FaceTimed Nana. They laughed. He told her he was okay. She said, "I love you" several times, and he hesitated, but said it as well. "I love you too." He knew we were all listening in the next door cell. I was so happy to hear her voice. That was one of the things I loved about her most, was her raspy, airy voice. Then Sheba got on the phone with True, and they said we had gotten $980 in donations, which was just enough to bail us all out if the bail was $1,000, only 10% each. Then I told Babaji I had $23 in cash in my wallet, and all the guys started saying, "Oh, she got a plan B. Earth is trying to escape." We all laughed because it was only $23, but no one is ever allowed to have money, so they said I was keeping a stash. Musa kept repeating it. "Earth is gonna escape." We all kept laughing, but I'd be lying if I said that thought didn't stay in the back of my mind, especially at that moment sitting in a prison for the first time ever in my life. Then Babaji called out to the first group and checked in on everyone one by one. He said, "Zoka, you good?" She said yes. Pice, then Kite, then Syrian, and when he said star, there was no response. He said star 3 more times and said, "Knockout, 25. I was dumbfounded, but then finally she heard and said, "Yerp, I'm good, Babaji." I was on the other side of the cell. I couldn't hear you. Then Fuji checked in, and last was Mente, but he couldn't hear anything because he was in the last cell by himself, very far. Finally, someone yelled out to him that Babaji said to report, and he gave a light yerp. Apparently, he was in a deep meditation. We always had a running joke with Mente because he was so cool and peaceful, always zen. We called him the divine feminine in a good way. He was always the calm and sound of reason and love. In prison, they called each one of us one by one. They asked me first if I wanted to make a statement. I said not without a lawyer. They had me sign a paper and walk me to the back of the cell. Every time somebody was called, we all said yerp to keep the morale up. I told Babaji what they had asked me because I said I needed a lawyer present. They didn't question me. Then Babaji said no one give a statement. I will answer everything. So everyone went smooth and quickly. Lunchtime came around and we ate the same meal, beans and salad. No one complained. We all shared and ate happily except for Niza. She still wouldn't eat anything. I think it was like day 7 that she had no food. I told Babaji that Niza wasn't eating and he told her to eat, but she didn't. That day, things got real daunting. Babaji called Nana and found out that none of the bail bonds wanted to help us because of carbonation affiliation and out-of-state offenders. So he told her to keep calling every bail bond and that someone would have to take the case, but no one ever did. I started to get sad and wondered if my sister and family knew about what was happening and how embarrassed I was that at age 39 I was arrested. I laid down and the water came flowing out of my eyes. Out of nowhere, Babaji called out, "Earth!" I said yes, and not yerp. It's like he could read my thoughts. I couldn't believe it. He said, "Stop thinking negative. Just remember every great leader has been in prison. Marcus Garvey, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, Malcolm X all went behind bars. How else can you help humanity if you don't experience the Black community struggle?" He said this was giving me experience so I could help heal more people and be able to understand the plight. He heard me sniffling and told me to stop crying, that nothing was going to happen to me. He said, "I already know you've never been to jail." Then he asked everyone else. Neytiri said yes. She was in jail for an expired license. Aya said yes. Eferu said no. And I think Malia said no also. He told us that we were doing this for our people, that the universe is testing us to see how strong we are, and this is just the beginning of what's going to happen in Babylon. I felt some form of relief, but the tears kept rolling every time I thought of my family. I kept debating if I was going to call them for help, so I asked Babaji and he said no one call your family for no reason. No contact with outside. He called out the others and said the same thing. No one contact Babylon family for no reason, and everyone confirmed and said, "Yerp." So that was the end of that struggle. Once an order is given from Babaji, it's law. Lunchtime came and it was beans and salad again. We all ate and shared no complaints. Niza still refused to eat. Babaji had told us that the bail was 2K, so only him, True, and Musa and Solar would be getting out, so they could work on all of us being released by getting more funds. Babaji called out and checked in with everyone one by one again, and we were all in check. By evening, dinner came, and they offered us cup of noodles. Malia said she didn't want that. We shouldn't eat it because of the chemicals, but Babaji heard and said for all of us to eat everything they give us. So we all got noodles. Even Niza ate this time, so we were all so happy and cheering her on. Malia made a comment and said, "Yeah, she only wants to eat that real Babylon shit." I really didn't get it because I was just happy to see her eat something. I did tell her she was definitely shrinking, and she smiled, and everyone agreed. She was getting smaller by the second.
Chapter 6, Day 2, Transferred to Federal Prison. Today we were all awoken by social services, checking to see if we had been abused or wrongfully handled. We checked the time and it was 5:30 a.m. I went first and the man asked me a ton of questions. Where do I work? I said I do spiritual work as a life coach. But you ended up in a cult? Okay. He asked if I had ever been arrested. I said no. He asked how much income I made. He asked my home address, which I gave my New York address before being in Georgia. What my religion was. I said science. He asked if I had ever been married. I said no. Malia, then Aya, then Natiri, who actually lied and said she never went to jail, which was weird. Efru went next, and last Naza, who said she had been arrested several times with criminal charges. So we all kind of gave her the side eye, but no one asked her, even though I was tempted. Then the man got questioned. Baba G said yes, he was arrested several times with criminal charges, and I couldn't really hear the rest of the guys, but I think True said no. When the guards came around for breakfast, we all anonymously declined the beans and salad and decided to wait for solar noon. The guys ate every chance they got. Oh, I bet they did. Before we could get to lunch, we were all put in handcuffs and feet chains, which cut up all of our ankles, and then we were dragged to the vans. We were told we had to go in front of a judge. When we got to the place, it was filthy, and all the women were put in one room with a hole in a toilet with a hole for a toilet, and then in separate rooms next door. Before we got in, we could see the guys through the glass peep. I gave Baba G a nasty look. By now, I was completely over it all. We all tried to hear each other, but finally, Baba G yelled to the top of his lungs, "Yerp!" Idiots. And we all heard him kept saying yerp back. Then Baba G asked, was everyone good? And Mama Aya said, everyone but Mama Earth. So Baba G kept calling me, and I didn't answer. Everyone was looking at me like I was crazy. I didn't care. I wanted out, and the chains on my ankle had me bleeding, so I was furious. He then said, if you were walking with Jesus, would you behave like this? I responded, I'm walking with the Messiah. That's the only reason I'm here. And everyone was hyping like, hey, yerp! So then he said, Earth, we're going to put you through school so you can be carbonation lawyer. The carbonation lawyer, Lord. Thought you already had one of those. We're going to be famous. Watch. I laughed, and he told me I did a really good job over the phone. And all the people heard about it. I laughed, and it made me feel a little better, but I was still ready to get out. One by one, we got called out, and we each were assigned lawyers. Syrian went first, and said that they had offered a deal to take a flight tomorrow morning, and all charges and fines will be dropped. She told them no, because she went out with Baba G. Baba G was in a peep glass and told her no, so we all followed suit. I was really upset because I wanted to take the deal. When it was my turn, Baba G was out at the same time talking to his lawyer, and I called him and he said, Baba, don't take the deal. To get out, we all need to meet in L.A. He said, no, we're going to stick it out. One mind, I responded, oneself in a big exhale of disgust. After all the women were gone, Star started singing, and we all gave affirmations one by one. I am protected. I am God. I am fully committed. I am victorious. I am powerful. I love myself. On and on we went for over an hour, and the men followed suit. So we were really pumped up. Then the guards came and took us to the back room. We all stood in line and started singing. Shining bright, shining bright. You all know that plagiarized song. I'm not singing it all. It was literally like the movies singing in the slaves movies singing in chains. This is her writing, not me. I was hysterically crying, but somehow I knew I would get out. Well, yeah, eventually. As we walked towards the room, we saw Baba G being taken in handcuffs, just leaving the same room we were going in. So he heard us all singing. They called us in front of the judge via computer screens, and we all got denied for bail or release because we turned the offer down. Really smart of you. I told the judge to please release the pregnant woman Zoka because she was not safe. She didn't even acknowledge me. We were all put in a huge van and taken to federal prison. As we pulled up to the prison, it looked normal. It's prison. When we got out, the ankle chains really cut us badly, and they had put our legs behind us, lifted to unchain us. I told everyone as we got out of the van to breathe in deeply and enjoy the air. But the moment we stepped foot, it looked like death. There was a desk in front and 2 cages on the left. Imagine the most disgusting prison you've ever seen, but 10 times worse. She's never been to any type of jail, which, I mean, that's fine, but dang. They had a counselor speaking to each one of us, one by one, after they caged us all up. I'll never forget Kevin. He cried and told me if I loved my family, take the offer and leave, because he wouldn't put his worst enemy in this prison. He said inside is the worst things he's ever seen, and he has to see it daily. He asked me if I had any mental health issues. Yes. Oh, no. I said no. He asked if I was on medication. I told him we were all healthy and eat organic. He told me this was the dirtiest, oldest prison, and they have no funds, short-staffed, and that the men and the women were intertwined, so it's not safe. Well, that isn't safe. He told me he could see I don't belong in a place like this, and asked if I had ever been to prison, and I said no. He kept crying literal tears and begged me to please convince the family to take the offer. He literally scared me, and we're literally using literally too much nowadays. That's for me. Star went, and he told her this is not a safe place for a black woman like you. He told Natiri she should get out now because she doesn't want this experience. He told all of us similar things, but by now I blacked out in my mind. I was mamusumed. I have no clue what mamusumed is, and she didn't explain it. I couldn't hear anything, and all I saw was red. About an hour later, Baba G and the men arrived. I was silent when they all did the yerp. I told Baba G what Kevin had told us, and all the women confirmed. Sound said it was a setup to make us leave, and that it won't be that bad. It was just a test. I guess Kevin overheard him, and he came over and said, "This is the worst prison you will ever see in the United States. This is the smallest town in Hawaii, and there are real killers and criminals in this prison. There are in every prison." He punched the top of the door and walked off crying. I told Baba G that they were also not going to give us our rec hour, and they had canceled that because they don't want the men to see us. So this meant we would get no outside air or sun. Baba G said, "Oh, hell no. Get us the fuck out. I don't want the women here." Oh, yeah, right. You don't care about anyone but your damn self. "We will stay, but please get the women on a flight." He tried to find his lawyer's mimosa number. There's that word again. But couldn't reach him. We all had to check in one by one at the desk. They gave us permission for one phone call. I was tempted, but Aya the spya, she really is, was literally staring me down like a hawk, and Baba G had given orders not to call any Babylon family. I didn't care at that point. I told myself I would whisper, and she won't hear me from the cage, because the men were making a lot of noise anyway. I had him call my sister's mimosa number. Hell far. But she never answered, and I thought to leave a message, but I just hung up. Soon as I walked back, she asked me, "Who did you call?" I told her they didn't answer and walked off. Like, what? Who did she think she was asking me questions? Meanwhile, we're in a prison dump, not knowing what could happen once we go inside. Malia and Star went in first, and they made them shower and change clothes. Then Zoka went, Syrian, and then Syrian came out saying, Star asked if she should take the TB shot, tuberculosis shot. I was like, hell no. The whole team gauged on me like, only Baba G gives orders. I told them, well, I'm not taking no damn shots. By this time, he was outside talking to Kevin, so he didn't hear. And when he came back in, Aya asked if Star should take the TB shot. They're giving it to everyone. Baba G literally said, hell no. I just kept my head down, and they all knew I wasn't with it. Everyone got quieter, and then Aya went for a shower and change of clothes. Then Efru, then lunch, and then they called chow came out. The men were so hyped. I bet they were. They never get to eat. It was chicken, cornbread, string beans, and gravy. It was a huge portion, too. Baba G told everyone to eat all the food they give you, but he didn't want his chicken, so he had the guys guess a mimosa number. God almighty. And True got it right with mimosa number 8. I couldn't eat all of mine's, so I slid my plate under the gate and told True that he could have it. The men were literally raving about being able to get 3 meals a day. That's so sad. You know, 'cause he starves them. I'm sure they were excited about that. And I was literally disgusted. But we are sitting in a cage, and they're hype about eating 3 times a day. Honey, when you're starving, yes. You see how little they are. They even said, oh, this is going to be luxury. I kept rolling my eyes and finally got up to go shower. As I was walking to the door, Baba G called me. Earth! I turned back and he said, I promise I'm going to get you out of here. And I turned away in tears, just started rolling. Felt like I was about to enter a horror movie. Then Baba G told the guard to be good to her, please. Behave. And he nodded at him, yes. So, Natureboy is giving the guards orders in jail. Then, as the door opened, Aya poked her head out and said, Star already took the shot before she heard the order. I just sucked my teeth and walked in. This place smelled like pure mildew, nothing like the holding cell prison. It was super clean and super cold, but just a normal building. They gave me a pair of prison clothes, a bar of soap, and a shirt for a towel. All smelled terrible. I got in the shower and screamed. It was just an open shower with a big garbage pail in it for the dirty towels after you finish. They had made me take off my nose ring, jewelry, panties, sandals, and clothes I came in with and bagged it up. As the guard walked me back, it was like an open stage full of me, gawking at me passing by. I kept my head down and didn't give any men eye contact, as Baba G taught us, never give any Babylon man eye contact, because people can get to you with the eyes. Paranoid weirdo. So I just turned away, but these men were like 20 sumo wrestlers just lined up like hungry dogs. The room we were in was literally in front of an open floor where they were. I walked in and the women were all cuddled up and talking. I told them Baba G said we were getting out of here, and we all got so happy. It was not safe. We have to learn how to speak up. Do you see those men out there? And did I mention the door didn't lock? It had a handcuff on it, so it was like it actually opened. Everyone started come in one by one. All of the women were together in the room, and the other random older white lady who was there for months was the one in there telling the women all the do's and don'ts. The room was a complete dump. It was like a shape of a bench around the one portion. They came in and literally threw a plastic mat, but nothing like the other place. These mats looked like they were 20 years old. They probably were. And they stunk and were ripped all over. Everyone else seemed too quickly adjusted, but I was in full resistance. I sat directly across from the door, waiting for any moment that it even made a crack, and I was alert. Aya and I decided we would stay awake while everyone else slept, and we did. Finally, around midnight, a guard came and shut the lights. As he stood at the door, one of the men screamed out, "One of you come suck my dick." I was shaking. I told the guard, "Please protect us." I also asked for covers because it was freezing. He shut the door, and we didn't hear a peep until the next morning. The door came flying open, and they announced chow. The breakfast was lavish: French toast, peaches, milk, and Cheerios in large portions. I admit, I was taken back by how good the food was. They actually told us that they had a real chef in the kitchen. So, we told them it was really good and thanked them. Throughout the day, we each needed to use the bathroom, which was down the hallway, which had to pass in front of all the men, who were free to roam around as they pleased. Apparently, they were inmates who worked for the prison, so they had freedom to do what they wanted. I begged the officers to please protect us, especially the men. Especially the men? Okay. I told them we were terrified. I became friends with one of the officers, who I found out in the end was the Sheriff Umi. He told me not to worry, that no one would touch us. Every time we came out of the room, we started to notice the guys were in the room behind, where all the other prisoners were blocking the open door stage area. We started throwing up love gang signs and saying "Yerp" every time we saw each other. At one point, we saw Baba G and went crazy, screaming and throwing up love gang signs, which is the middle finger, intertwines around the index fingers. The guards told us to stop the sounds and signs, that we were creating drama with the inmates. And then they covered the room window with a black curtain where the men were, so we couldn't have any contact. After the second day, we made sure we didn't see them. They made sure we didn't see them. So the second night, Zoka said she would pretend she was sick, so that she could try and get some sort of update from Baba G. So she called the guard, and they brought her out in front and took her to the hospital. They told her the baby was healthy and the heartbeat was good. She came back in the really early morning. That's probably the only time she's went to the doctor to have that baby checked. Around 5 or 6 a.m. and told us she saw Baba G coming in. He was talking with the officers and we should be getting out on Monday. Because it was a weekend, the courts were closed. So we were all kind of relieved because we felt it would be hard to get out on a Sunday with courts closed. So it made sense, even though I was ready to get out on sight. We all convinced ourselves we could stick it out for 2 more days.
Chapter 7, Day 3 in Prison. Shit started to get raw by day 3. After we all got over the food hype, everyone was getting in their feelings. Triggers were coming left and right. Everyone was irritated and hadn't seen sunlight or gotten fresh air in 72 hours. Zoka was the first to say that if we are going back to Cookie's house, she was going to remain with her Babylon family because she could go backwards in Babylon. She already felt like she didn't get pregnant in the tropics and that she wanted to give her baby the best environment and that Mama Cookie's house was not going to be good for her and that she'd rather use her Babylon resources and manipulate that situation rather than go back to Cookie's house. Everyone was shocked, including myself. I was like, wow, seems like you got this all mapped out. Aya was like, you think you would do better in Babylon? She said she wanted to test herself, and also she wanted to see if she could see a doctor for her skin because the natural remedies were not working for her and she needed to heal her body. I kept shaking my head at her because I thought she was one of the strongest people in carbonation, so I was definitely disappointed. She looked at me and said, "What, Earth? Why are you shaking your head?" I told her that I had no words and that I would let her deal with Baba G because she wasn't making any sense in my mind. Then Malia came in and talked about how she felt some energy from Zoka. Malia said Satan was moving through Zoka to get her angry. She said Zoka talked to her in a very authoritative, demeaning way, which reminded her of her Babylon sisters who never let her use her voice, like she wasn't important. I asked her, what did Zoka do? But all she kept saying is that it was her energy. I told her she was projecting herself onto Zoka and that she was taking it out on Zoka, that Nana is back and she's not ready to face her. She got defensive and said, "I don't care about Nana, she can have him." I had told her that was a lie, and we started digging, and she finally started to cry and opened up. She said she already feels neglected by Babaji because she tried to hug him the other night in the room and he pushed her away once he found out Nana was coming back. And she said she could feel him slipping away. She said she loves Babaji so much and didn't want to feel like she's not getting her investment back from being with him. She said that when she miscarried his baby after 3 months, she knew she wasn't ready, but that now that she had finally built her strength and was getting her confidence, Nana decides to come back, and now she doesn't know when she's going to get another chance with Babaji. I told her that Nanaji is coming from hell and that she needs more healing than all of us, and that she just got all her exclusive time with Babaji and she had to be open, especially knowing how happy he will be having his daughter back. She cried it out and we all hugged on her and loved on her and told her that it'll be different this time and that she could be herself and that she didn't have to fight Nana to win Baba, but to embrace the changes and to allow herself to focus inward and perfect her crafts. Then, as we all spoke about Nana, something rose up in Star. Her whole face changed and she was very nasty, like she wanted to fight. And she said that she felt like all she wants is to give love, but no one wants to give it in return. She explained that she never had any personal time with Babaji like everyone else, and that she was trying to love herself back to life, and how she had a dream about Musa. In the dream, she said that her and Musa hugged, and she just feels the need to be close to him, to reach out to him, and that she would get closer to him when we all got back, but that Nana coming back would be so much chaos, and that I had no idea the kind of disruptions that she causes. She said it's always chaos when she's around, and she truly wants to be in peace and love with everyone. I spoke up and said that I felt like Nana is an amazing soul and that I couldn't wait to meet her. Everyone looked at me like I was crazy except for Syrian. Natiri told me just wait and see what happens. She told me I'm obsessed with Nanaji and she's so tired of how much I praise her and that I had no idea who Nana is. And the whole room was like, yep. Zoka said one of the things I notice is whenever Babaji gets stabilized or he's doing some epic shit, she comes along to make sure that she's enjoying the glory, but doesn't want to go through the struggle like everyone else who stuck it out the entire time. So I said all I've heard is awful things from everyone about Nana. Can someone tell me something good about her too? They all said the loveliest things. Star said she was an amazing mother. Natiri said she loved her body. Aya said she loves her fire. Malia said she loves her confidence. I said I love her raspiness in her voice and the passion she speaks with. Syrian said she loves that she knows how to take care of house so well, like she knows how to be a wife and mother really well. I expressed that this time it would be very different and that we have to give her a fresh chance and that if Babaji is happy, we have to trust in his decision. Everyone agreed. Natiri said she was nervous about her coming back and that she hoped it would be different this time. Aya said, well, you see Earth how it is. It's a program. And then Efru said, yeah, it's crazy. Baba G just keeps looping the same program over and over again with her, and how we are literally a program. For some reason, that really stuck with me when she said that. It's very hard to get Efru to express herself. So when she does, if she's not being whiny, it's usually insightful. That night, we all healed pieces of ourselves and cried and slept really at ease.